Welcome to Do You AGRAY, a space where we have real conversations. I have with me Kevin today, Jermaine, and our guest today is none other than Lionel.
Hello.
Guest today, future co-host.
Wow, I hope so.
Yes,
I've been watching all the videos, so I'm a fan.
Nice. Yeah, we've known each other for a couple of years, and he has amazing insights, honestly.
Yes,
And,
amazing mind.
Beautiful mind, and has a beautiful family. So our question today is, what is it that brings people to Christ? Is it just love and acceptance, or is that watering down the gospel?
Yeah, that's a profound question. I really, really, really love it because the way I came to Christ it's very particular. It's very different. My background, I was born in Congo, so my background is everybody in Congo is religious. If you tell people you don't believe in God, people look at you like, what do you mean?
Like for us too.
What do you mean you believe in God? But I grew up in France, and in France, if you tell people you believe in God, people are like, what do you mean? You know? So like funny. I had like this really clashing upbringing with those two cultures, and I knew I would never say that I was an atheist, because in my culture, I knew that there was a God out there, but I didn't know that he was actually, he could intervene in our everyday life. I feel like, it was something that people prayed when things were bad, but I didn't know about the everyday, constant presence. And
it's similar for us in the Middle East. It's a given. Like you're born believing.
You don't believe in God. What do you mean?
And it doesn't matter which faith you're from. You're still believing.
Yeah.
And so, but what denomination or what religion were you? What did you grow up as? What were your parents?
I would say it's very. I think it's more like cultural Christian. We would go to I think church on Sunday from time to time.
Okay.
We when things were tough, we would be in the réunion de prière. Like those are like kind of prayer meeting, like super hardcore. When you pray, like ask God for all the blessings. These are the kind of thing that I did growing up.
But I think you made a good point. Like you knew he was there, but you didn't think he cared about you.
Yeah, no, and it's really the fact that it always felt like, it was the thing of other people, It was the thing of the parents, it was the thing of people that were really believers, and I would never see myself as a believer. I was just like, I believe, but I would not kneel down and ask whatever is up there to intervene in my life. But it was very interesting, because when I met people, when I met a friend who kind of introduced me to the gospel, it was actually profound, because for the first time, so we had Bible at home, but it's never the book that you would open. It's somewhere. That if you, I know that if I go to my mother's room, I'll find it. But never something that.
Is it just there, just to bring a blessing by the presence?
To be fair,
protection, some sort of protection.
To be fair and honest, it was in my mother's room, and my mother would read the Bible. But she would not call the kids and say, "Hey kids, I'm going to read you the Bible." The Bible is in her room, and I know that the Bible is there, but it's never something where like we would have like passages of the Bible read to us as a family. So then when that friend kind of explained to me about the Bible and read to me, for example, the story of Noah, I was just like, for some reason, and it's so crazy, because for some reason I felt like, wait, that's actually in the Bible, because you hear those stories, Noah's Ark and stuff like this, and so, you hear about it, but to read it in the detail, to be like, it's not just a folklore that some people are talking about, like there's actually a text that details those events. To hear it this way, you're like, okay, it's interesting. I never actually heard it this way. So then my connection with the Bible was actually, it's like, that was kind of like the book that has always been there, but that I never actually took time to read. Like, I don't know, when the first time I read the Psalms, as a person, you go through a lot of suffering, you go through a lot of toughness, and you hear people talking about like, read the Psalm when you're not doing great, read the Psalm, read Proverbs, you hear about it, but until you actually sit down, or, if anybody watching, if you can go online and actually go and look for the book of Psalm, or if you can find a Bible and read the book of Psalm, until you actually do it, it actually, like, people cannot explain it to you. It's something that you actually have to take and open and actually read. Because I went to church, I heard people talking about it, but until you actually do it yourself, it's completely different.
100% agree,
No, go.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That's my
you cannot, and that's also the thing, like the Bible talks about tasting God, like as a food that you come and you go and eat, like Kevin was eating earlier, like Kevin can explain to me what he's eating, but it's not, I cannot picture until I actually take a fork and put it in my mouth myself.
But I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves, because you're talking about God and tasting, but we want to go back and see, like, how did you grow up? Did you grow up tasting God, reading the Word, and
so if I go back to that analogy, I grew up really thinking, I grew up knowing that God was there and it's accessible, but I never thought that God that other people pray to can feel needs in my life. So it was always like, it works for them. It works for them, but I never saw it applicable to me.
So.
Until
So what kind of life were you living then apart from God?
So no, it's very good question. So I grew up in France.
We won't judge you.
No, I grew up in France. France is very liberal. You see, like, here in the US, for example, there is kind of, now living here, you can see how the country is only Christian in saying, but like sometime in the actions are not. But in France, we don't even have that. We don't even have the Christian saying. So the country is actually very, very liberal in thinking, in doing, secular, and so there's no. And I remember, like, it's kind of like you kind of try to. I remember when I was younger, I would qualify myself as an hedonist. Like, find pleasure and enjoy it while you can, and because at the end of the day, there's no goal, so just party and just have fun, because at the end there's nothing,
Wow.
And that was profound, because I always remember so I would be a big party animal, like, party, drinking, drugs, and those are kind of things that I really regret, because I feel like, like it can really, it kind of cuts you from people. So I don't know, like, if you speak to, like, even in the recreational drugs and things like this, people are partying, but you actually, that's why people call it a trip. You are like taking your, and you're having your personal thing, and you're not actually mingling really deeply with people. Like, you can have, conversation if you're like high on something, you can have very deep conversation with people, but at the end you wake up the next day and you're like, you don't even remember. So, but having that deep conversation with my brothers, with people that I love, it's only after, I'm like, wow, why was I wasting, like drinking all of that? We could have actually had those deep conversation, sober, and actually go deeper. So I remember feeling always like, the party is nice. It's never as nice as you think it's gonna be, though, but it's nice. And I would always tell my friend, like, but what are we doing after? And what are we doing after? Because it doesn't satisfy, right?
Empty.
You always feel like, and so at some point I was leaving from, Saturday to Saturday. You leave from one party to the
one
next.
high to the next.
Exactly. You're always thinking, okay, that was good, anticlimactic. Maybe next time will be better. But then you go there and so I was kind of, heavy in those things. And I really remember, like, well, if that's all there is, it's not great, but it's not bad. It's just, you know. But yeah.
So how did that change? How did you find something more lasting?
When was the turning point?
Oh, wow.
Of that?
Profound. So before the turning point, I have to tell about that. The last big party that I did. I have to tell that story.
Tell us.
The last big party. Yes.
That story
Tell
is
us about
very,
the big party.
that story is very important because the last big party that I did, and I remember like it's yesterday, I went with several friends. One of the girlfriend that I was with, she could not get into the party or she decided not to get in. So I was just then with my boys and, just partying there. And I do remember that I was so out there, like it was the first time, and it's very bad, but it was like the first time where I heard about this when people explained, but it was my first time where you take a drug that is so strong that you actually have auditable hallucinations. And like literally I do remember at the end, and that is crazy, and this is why I think it's important that I tell the story, because it's very true. And I remember at the end, I distinctly remember like hearing my best friend coming to me and telling me, Lionel, okay, they're gonna close the party, they're gonna try to chase us from here, but we need to stay. We need to stay. I was like, yeah, we need to stay. And then they closed it, and I made a tantrum. I didn't want to go because I heard that voice that was telling me, from my best friend, that was telling me I need to stay there. And so, no, I don't want to, I want to stay. And, so like there's like battle with the bouncer. They have to throw me out. And then, and when I think about that thing, I could have really, I know how some people, like, they go from there through then, having some mental crisis and just lose it completely. That could have really happened to me because then on the next day when I called my friend and I told him that, and he was like, dude, I never told you that.
Wow.
And I was like, no, you're messing with me now.
He was there though.
He was there at the party. He was there at the party. And I was like, dude, you're messing with me right now. You were with me and you literally came and you told me, they're going to try to take us away from this, but we need to stay here. Wow. They're going to take us, but we need to stay here. And so this is the last big party that I did. And so, if anything happened, if instead of throwing me out of the thing that I'd call the police, I was such in a state, I was, I don't even know what would have happened, And so,
wow.
But the thing is, even when you have like those bad experiences, since that's all you can do, when people call you for the next party, you go, because that's all there is, like it's not like there's an alternative of thing to do, at least not when I was not at my point.
Wow.
And so, that's the last party that I remember. And so to come to your question, when did the turnaround happen?
The turning point,
Yeah, the turnaround happened because I met that friend, and he talked to me about God.
Where were you? In France?
No, it's a long story, but I was, at this time I was in South Africa, and I had a friend at work who was a weird guy. He would always say, praise the Lord. And I was like, what do you mean? and so just a weird guy, but very kind. And he would come to my house and he would cook stuff, and it would always be super healthy. He was super health conscious. And he talked to me about God. He would talk to me about like, the love of God. I remember like him telling me, you have to read the Gospel of John. It's really about love. And, and that's the thing as well. Like, until you actually open those books and read them, you can't really understand what those people mean. Until you literally take the Bible and flip the book open and read it, you feel like all of these people are just on a high, they're just crazy. But when you actually read those stories and you're like, wow. And so it kind of gives you like a punch. Got a punch. And so
even, I think this is even true for us that go regularly to church, you can sit and listen to somebody tell you about the Bible, and it could affect you, and you could feel pumped up and all these things. But it's a totally different experience. And this is speaking from experience. Just sitting down and reading for yourself, like you're actually. It's weird. It's another supernatural.
That's exactly It's
another level.
You're tapping into something that's unreal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I can definitely relate.
No, it is, and I think that's the perfect word. I think supernatural is the best way, because there's no way that book on a page that have been there for, I don't know, who's a theologian here? When was the King James Bible? Like for many years, and so that same book traveled to your hand today in 2023, and you open it, and you get something that is kind of undescribable, that I cannot describe to you unless you actually open the thing and read it for yourself. It's very what happened is I opened that friend who talked to me about God, he gave me a Bible. And so for the first time I had a Bible, it was my Bible. It was not my mother's Bible, it was not my uncle's Bible, it was not like a Bible that I hear people talk about, it was my Bible. And so he offered me my Bible, and I opened the book of Proverbs. And in the book of Proverbs, I read, and what is profound in the book of Proverbs for anybody, just open and read the book of Proverbs. It's because as a man, it talks to you directly. It's not saying like, and Jesus told John to do this. No. Proverbs, it says, my son, do not do this, do this. Do not do this, do this. And it addresses you directly. It says, my son. So when I read this, I was like, okay. So, so that's why those parties and those kind of lifestyle was not actually, that's not what I was meant to do. And so when you find out, actually, what I'm meant to do is actually kind of follow those way of living, then that everything starts making more sense. And I think somebody said, like, when you then open it, then you start seeing everything through your belief now.
So
did you start reading that on your own, or was there someone that encouraged you to read it, or?
No, so that friend was literally, we were talking about God from time to time, and he offered me my Bible. I would go to church, and I was amazed because I felt like the people were so kind. I literally felt like they were acting. I literally felt like, no, somebody's this is a Truman Show, like somebody's gonna come and say, no, it was all a joke, like I felt like it was a prank because they were so kind.
Wow.
They were so kind. It was nearly ridiculous.
What church was it?
Oh, it was a church in South Africa.
Was it, what denomination was it?
Oh, Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Okay.
Yeah. And then,
so the co-worker was also Seventh-day Adventist?
Yeah, he was Seventh-day Adventist.
And then there was a friend, you said, that gave you the Bible.
No, so it was that co-worker who gave me the Bible.
Did he tell you to go to church?
But he waited a long time. Maybe after like weeks of talking often, he was like, hey, you know what? I'm coming. I go to church every Saturday. Do you want to come? And I was like, what else am I going to on a Saturday morning? Let's go. And so I went, and that's when I saw the people were so kind. I was really taken aback. I mean, I feel like everybody that is Christian that goes to a church, I think you take it for granted that there's no place in the world where people are going to be super welcoming, unless it's a place where, they're going to, ask you to pay for something, or, they're going, if you go to a restaurant, like they want a tip, so they're going to be kind. But I was just amazed at the kindness of the people. And so then, like, to make a long story short, then after this, I go to church, I go back to France. Church in France, the same thing, the same level of kindness. And then there's that old lady, at that time, I was not at all going to church because I was understanding what they were talking about. I was literally just sitting. From time to time, I would understand what they were talking about. Most of the time, I was just like, it completely went over my head. But there was that old lady, and, she would always be like, oh, I was happy to see you today. Don't forget to come back. Don't forget to come back. And so sometimes when I would be at home on Friday night, like still partying, you know, and so going to bed at like 2 a.m. on Friday night, and I'll be like, I need to set my alarm to go to church because otherwise that old lady, she's gonna be sad if she doesn't see me. She's so kind. I don't want her to be sad. I don't want to break her heart, and I don't even want to go. I don't even know. But okay, let me just go so that I can say hi to that lady. And so I would go to church after having partied on Friday. I would go to church still smelling the alcohol from the Friday night, sleeping most of the time. But nobody woke me up. Nobody was like, dude, you're in church. They were all just super. It was like they were happy that I was there. For real. Like they were just like, oh, don't forget to come next week. And in my mind, I was like, old lady, I mean, I'm literally coming here and just falling asleep and not even being respectful to whatever you guys are doing.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. And they still...
But they still love them
accepted wanting you to come.
a lot, yeah. Like, it was all... I never heard anybody in the church tell me anything wrong. Never heard anybody say, like, you know, no, never. And I would literally be sleeping in the pew during the sermon. So now that I've been Christian for 8 years, I can understand how, like, the sermon is the highlight, you know. Like, you know,
I wouldn't be happy if you were asleep in my sermon.
You know, you're waiting for this, you know.
I'd say, talk to that young man.
Exactly.
I worked hard.
That's amazing.
Many hours.
Exactly. It took many years for me to actually sit through a sermon and actually understand. It took years, not weeks, years.
This lady, she would see you at church, smelling like alcohol, sleeping in the pew.
Yes.
And she would still say, I'm so glad you came. Come next week.
Yeah. And absolutely.
Did that do something? Like, did that do something to you?
I think that I did not realize it right away. But, you know, love is such a powerful thing because, you know, love... You know, like, it takes time for you to understand what love is. And so at that time, I was just like, oh, you know, she's an old, sweet lady. But now with looking back at that situation, I really see that that lady was used, you know, by God. And that entire church, those entire people were used to literally show me the acceptance that God has for me as a person.
Wow. That led you to stay in church.
Yeah, exactly. Then be baptized, then be a Christian, then be married, then have 2 kids. You know, like like
amazing.
What is very profound as well when you become a Christian is that there's literally a before becoming Christian and after, because when I see this, like all of the decisions that happened in my life after that, it's all because of that decision of, you know, don't forget to come to church. Don't forget to come to church.
So let me ask this. What if this lady came to you and told you, I'm so glad you're here, but just remember, you need to stay awake to listen and try not to come here with, you know,
smelling
drunk
like this.
or smelling like alcohol.
Yeah.
What would that have done to you? What would you think?
Yeah.
Would you come back the next week maybe?
I think that I would... I don't know if I would stop going, but I think that I would be less religious about making sure I'm there. Because it came from, I at all understand what they were talking about, but just because I did not want to disappoint that lady, and she was kind to me, and I just wanted her to see my face. And that actually was literally... you know, what was waking me up to go.
You know, she really wanted to see you.
Exactly. And so if there was not that, I felt like I would have been okay, like, you know what, I'm too tired, I'm not going. Oh, you know what, I'm too tired, I'm not going. And then 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 months, and then 6 months. And maybe, you know, but the fact that that lady was, don't forget to come back, that was huge.
Lionel, what message would you want our listeners to take from this?
Yeah. I think the number one message is that...
I know there's a lot we can all take.
Yeah, I know there's a lot. But
I think the first one is for anybody in the audience listening, and I'm actually going to watch that video as well. So Christianity only becomes real when you actually open the books, when you actually open the book and start reading for yourself.
I agree. That's what happened for me too.
Yeah. There's no... You can't describe that.
Yeah.
And
You
so the
can't.
first thing is for anybody, if you feel like you want to look at that alternative, like there's no testimony from somebody that is going to lead you there.
Yours.
Exactly.
You have to have your own.
The only way, flip open the book. That's I wish somebody had told me this before.
You gotta have your Bible.
Exactly. The Bible of your mother is not going to work for you. The Bible of your friend is not going to work for you. The Bible of the pastor on the pew, if you already go to church, it's not going to work for you. It's only going to work. Your Bible is going to work for you by you yourself reading it. So that's the first thing. It's like it's something that you have to taste for yourself. It's unexplainable. It's nearly silly to try to explain that technically.
Taste and see.
Exactly. And the second message is God is like that old lady that tells you don't forget to come back.
Wow.
God is constantly running after you, constantly telling you don't forget to come back. And God is constantly loving on us, humanity, and humans from all, you don't have to love God for God to love you. And so if
you don't have to be in a perfect condition for him to say, come back, I'm happy to see you.
Exactly. And so God being love, like there is a deep love. And
I really like that.
No, go ahead. No, go.
Because in such a time we live in, there's so many debates about a lot of things. But I always remember, if you don't have all the pieces together, if you don't understand, when in doubt, love. You cannot go wrong with love. Just love, because that's you don't have to have all the pieces, all the theology, but you will never go wrong if you just love people. So that's very profound what that lady did.
And I was saying even before that, your coworker, I think, that he was so nice to you. You wouldn't even accept his Bible, maybe,
if he wasn't
actually nice.
Kind.
If he wasn't kind.
That's true.
So I think this is what we were trying to get to. But we all have the opposite experience, I'm sure, for those of us growing in the church. And maybe our next video can be about what are some things we've heard people tell us that have kind of like hurt us or caused us not want to go back to church. And so maybe we could discuss that on our next video.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.